Welcome to today's lesson, brought to you by Plug Into Learning.
Today's lesson, we're going to be talking about accounting, specifically the income statement. Hopefully you're not panicked like this guy here on the slide, or at least by the end of this you won't be. So if we recall, the purpose of accounting is to provide the necessary financial information so that accurate and timely decisions can be made. That information, if you remember, is collected by the accounting department, it's sorted by the accounting department, and then hopefully at the end it's able to be turned into one of two formal financial documents. So we have the balance sheet and the income statement. If you recall, the balance sheet shows us the value of the business to the owner, and today we're going to be focusing on the second formal financial document, which is the income statement. So what is an income statement? As we said, it's a formal document, so it has specific rules about formatting and what it looks like. What's included is the business's revenues and expenses, and here's the key for a specific accounting period, a specific period of time. So if we break that down, if the document is talking about revenues and expenses, then we know that that means overall we're talking about profit. It's going to show us the profit of our business, and generally that's the reason businesses are looking at their income statement, is to see that profit. Okay, but as I mentioned, it's very important that we remember it's for a very specific period of time. So the two components on the income statement, as we just learned, are revenue and expenses. So a little recap, what is revenue? Revenue is any income that the company receives from its business activities. So whatever your business normally does to make money, what you are in business to do, that is going to be your revenue. Some examples of the terms you're going to see for revenues are sales. Okay, so if you're a shoe store, you're probably going to have shoe sales. Okay, another one you might see is fees earned. So a lot of service businesses are like this. So, manicure fees earned, hair cutting fees earned, or the word revenue itself. The thing to think about when determining if something is a revenue is what your business does to make money. Okay, so if we think I am a golf course, my business is a golf course, how do golf courses make money? What are they in business to do? Well, people pay them fees to use the course. Okay, and so our revenue is going to likely have some sort of fees earned in the title. Okay, another example, as I mentioned before, if you are a shoe store, what do? You sell shoes. So you're likely going to have sales or revenue with the words shoes in it, or the other things that you sell. So that can help you figure out what are revenues and what are expenses. And of course, the other one are expenses. So your formal definition for expenses are your accounts which record the cost of doing business. Okay, to help you think that through, these are going to be anything that your business spends money on, but that you do not get an asset for. Okay, so we know with assets, when we spend money to buy a car, we get a car. That is an asset. So we don't need to worry about those ones. But if we, pay rent, we're not getting an asset. We don't own anything, but it's a cost of doing business. And so that is what an expense is. There are lots and lots of possible expenses for a business. Here are a few examples of them. Like I said, rent, hydro, which is electricity, water, and gas, telephone, your salary and wages to your employees, supplies, insurance, advertising. Like I said, there could be hundreds of different ones out there. How are you going to know if something is an expense? Well, what do you notice that's the same about all of these? They all have the word expense in them, so it should be fairly easy to identify them. All right, so now it's your turn to take what you've learned. So here we've given you a list of 8 items. I'd like you to pause the video and classify which ones are revenue and which ones are expenses. All right, hopefully you took a second to decide to split those up, and let's take a look. So your first one, remember at the top it says you are a sporting hockey goods store. So skate sales, this is something we do to earn money. So this would be a revenue. Okay, your wage expense, it has the word expense. Hydro expense, it has the word expense. Your skate sharpening fees earned. Okay, so there's a few clues here. The word fees earned, okay, generally shows us that it's a revenue, or if we think about what we do as a business, we're a hockey store, we probably are the ones doing the skate sharpening, being paid for it. So that is a revenue. Insurance expense, again, it has the word expense, so that's what it is. Puck revenue, again, clue here is the word revenue, but it's also the business that we're in. We're usually selling pucks, so that is, yes, a revenue. And then your last two, rent expense and insurance expense, also have the words expenses. So those are your expenses. All right, so when you are preparing an income statement, this right here is going to be your first step. You're going to look at all the accounts that you've been given, and you're going to divide them up as either revenues or expenses, and then you're going to use that information to create your formal income statement. Okay. The final term that you're going to see on your income statement is net income, which really is kind of the end result of your income statement. That's what we are looking for. Okay, if you remember, net income is equal to revenue minus expenses. Okay, and just to keep in mind, if that number ever comes back negative, we need to change it from net income to net loss. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So on the screen, I have an example of an income statement for you. Okay, we're going to start at the top and work our way down. So at the top, you'll notice you have that 3-line title, just like you had in a balance sheet. Okay, similar but slightly different. The first line is the same. It's the who. This is your company name. The second line is your what. So this time we are creating an income statement. So that should say income statement. And your third line is your when or your date. However, you will hopefully notice that there has been an extra bit added here. So while this income statement is being prepared for February 28th, 2018, you will notice that there's some more details at the front. We told you that income statements are for a specific period of time. So they're not just at a period, at a specific date. They're for a specific period of time. In this case, it is for 1 month. So we only start recording at the beginning of the month and we end at the end of the month. So when we're stating the date, we have to make sure that that is very clear. So the format that we use for this is we always start with the words for the, okay, and then you're going to put the time period that's being used. In this case, it's 1 month. So we'll say for the month. If it was a year, you would say for the year. If it was 3 months, you'd say for the 3 months. If it was 3 days, you'd say for the 3 days. Okay, so it's always that same. Then you use the word ended, and then you do the last day. Okay, so the February 28th is the last day of that month. And again, it's full formatting date, full month, day, comma, year. All right, so if we go ahead and get started, you'll notice that your actual template for this is different than your balance sheet. You have 3 main columns. So only one column has words, then one column has numbers, and then another column has numbers. Okay, so getting started in our word column, our far left column, the very first thing we have is revenue. We're going to start with our revenue, and you'll notice for formatting that this is bolded. Okay. You're then going to go ahead and list out your revenue items that you have for your business that you have been given. However, please note that these are indented. There is a space that's been left. Okay, the writing does not go all the way to the left-hand side. There is that space that's been left. And they are also in alphabetical order. So before you start writing, you have to look at what the first letter of each of them is and put them in the order of the alphabet. So I have rental revenue and sales revenue. R comes first, so it gets listed first. Okay. You'll then write the numbers that you've been given for each of these accounts in this column here, this second column. Okay, so anytime you are given numbers, they are going to go in this second column. Okay, when I'm done listing all of the revenues, I'm going to include a single underline here. okay, to show that I'm done and I'm going to do some math. And then you'll see on our next line, we have total revenue. And again, it's all the way back to the left, okay? To calculate that, okay, it is a total, so we're simply going to add up all of our revenues. So we're going to add these two numbers here, but you will notice instead of putting the number right underneath, we are putting the number over here in the third column. So in the third column, we put numbers that are calculated anytime we have to come up with a number. All right, so that finishes our revenue section. So we're going to move on to an expense section. Again, we have a title, so this needs to be bolded. Okay, and then you are going to go ahead and list all of the expenses that you are given. Just like for revenues, you'll notice that they should be indented, so in from the left side, and that they should be in alphabetical order. So once again, I have an R and an S as my starting letters, so that's going to determine my orders. Okay. Again, these numbers are given to us, so they're going to be placed in our second column. Once we have listed them all and we are done, we are going to include that single underline. Okay, so you'll notice that you have a single underline after total revenue, after your last revenue item, and after your last expense number. So there's two single underlines in your second column. Okay, after you've done that, you're going to include your total expense line, again, all the way to the left-hand side. And we're going to put that number in the far right column, that third column, because again, that's where all of our calculated numbers go. It is a total, so that is addition. You're going to add up all of your expenses here and place that number here. All right, our very last thing that we need to do is put our net income. So again, this is going to be bolded. Okay, and you're going to notice that I have a single underline here before it because again, there's going to be math done on these two numbers. So two single underlines in the far left column, one single underline in the far right column, and then we're going to calculate our net income. And just as a reminder, that is your total revenue, which is up here, minus your total expenses, which is here. Okay. Finally, the very last thing we're going to do, because we are done, anytime we are finished a financial document, we are going to include our double underline at the very bottom. All right, so that is how you do an income statement. And now we can go through an example and create one together. All right, so if we take a look at our example here, you'll notice that you're given some information at the top, the company and the dates, and then you are given your accounts. And then below, you can see slightly different color. This is going to be the grid that you're going to use to create your income statement. All right, so let's get started. We know for our title, the very first thing we're going to write is our company name. From the description, it says we are creating an income statement for Bubba's Bowling Alley. So we are going to put Bubba's Bowling Alley in here. Below that, we put what we are creating. We're creating an income statement. Okay, and finally, we're going to include our date line. So remember our format for this. We're always going to start with for the. Okay, and then we're going to put the time period. So for this one, it says we're creating it for the year of 2016. So we're going to put for the year ended. Okay, remember, this is the format you must use. It doesn't matter how it's written up here. You always need to use the correct format here. For the, and then the time period. So in this case, year ended. And then we need to put the specific date of the last day in this period. So the last day in 2016 is December 31st. So we're going to write December all the way out, 31, 2016. Okay, so that's it for our title, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So the first thing we do is revenue, okay, and it needs to be bolded, revenue, okay. If you're not familiar with sheets, what you're going to do is you're going to select that cell, and you're going to go up to the top here for this B for bold to create it bold. Okay, so we need to list our revenues. So as I mentioned at the top, we should go ahead and go through and categorize these. So the first item we have is fees earned. Okay, so that is going to be a revenue. So I'm going to highlight it for myself. The next one is interest revenue. That word gives it away for me, so I know that that's a revenue. Then we have supplies expense, utilities expense, telephone expense. So those ones we know are expenses. So we have two revenues. The first one starts with an F. The second one starts with an I. So if we use our alphabet, and don't be ashamed to sing it in your head as you need to, A, B, C, D, E, F. We come to F first, so that's going to go first. We need to make sure that it is indented, and there really isn't a great way to do that other than using your space bar. So you're just going to hit 4 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you're going to type fees earned. Okay. And we know that that value goes in the next column, that second column, because it is given to us. Okay, we have set up the statement for you to automatically format it in what's called accounting formatting. Okay, and the link to this is below in the YouTube video as well as in the Google Classroom. Okay, however, if you're ever doing this on your own and you wanted to figure out how to do that, you just select all of your cells that are going to have numbers in them, and you go up here to the numbers and you go to accounting. But as you can see, we already did that for you. All right, so then you're going to go to your next one. Again, 4 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you're going to write interest revenue. Okay, and that is 150. And you'll notice that it's going to line up those values for you. That's why we don't need the multiple columns this time. All right, so we know that that's our last revenue, so we need to put an underline under this one here. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to go up here to where it says borders. Okay, and you're going to see that you have this bottom border option here. Okay, and that's what you're going to go ahead and click. Just want to note to you, just in case you click this and it seems like nothing happens, this tool up here lets you change the color of your border. So in case it hasn't adjusted back, you want to make sure that this is on the black. Okay, and then you'll be able to go ahead and hit that underline. And then when you move this off of it, you will see that there is a black border here. If you want it to be more pronounced, okay, you can go here and you can select a thicker border. Okay, and then when you hit that underline, you'll see there's a nice thick border there for you. Okay, all right, so our next line is total revenue. And again, we're allowed to leave that one all the way to the left. And then we're going to go all the way over here to our far right column to do that total. All right, that is adding up these two numbers here. You're welcome to do that on a calculator and type it in, but when you're doing it on the computer, there is an easier way to have the computer do this for you, where you would just hit the equal sign, and then you're going to select the number that you want. You're going to do a plus and select the next number that you want and hit enter. And it's going to do that math for you. But again, if you'd rather just use the calculator and type that in, that is fine. All right, so we can go ahead and get started on our next section. Again, we are going to write expenses. Okay, and we want to go up to the top here and make that bolded so we know it's a title. Okay, and we would then go ahead and list our expenses. So at the top we have supplies, we have utilities, and we have telephone. So again, use that alphabet, sing it out if you need to figure out your order. Okay, to figure out that the supplies come first. Okay, so we're going to do our 4 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we have supply expense. And go to that second column because that number is given to us and type in 12, 1, 2, 3. Okay, really important, guys, don't type in the commas or the dollar signs. Okay, that's going to mess up your formatting. You want to make sure you just type in the numbers as is. Okay, our next one in the alphabet is T. So again, 4 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then telephone expense. Okay, and that's going to be 230, and then we do put the decimal, 42. Okay, and then finally is utility expense. So again, 4 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then utilities expense. Okay, and that one is 13,000. So 13, 1, 2, 3. All right, that is all of our expenses, so we want to do that underline, okay? Google is smart enough to remember your preferences from before, so it will keep it a nice thick black border, so all you have to do is go to bottom border, okay? And then that will come there for you. Okay, so our next line was total expenses. Again, this can be all the way to the left. You can just type as is, but we are going to then go all the way to the right to do that calculation. Okay, totals are addition. You're going to add these up. You can do that on your calculator, or again, using your Google Sheets to your advantage, you can hit equals and then say, I want this one plus this one plus this one, and get your total there. All right, so our last line is going to be our net income, okay, or possibly net loss, depending what that number is, but I always start with the net income and change it if I need to. Okay, we know that we need an underline under total expenses, so I'm going to go back up to the top here and add that. Okay, and then we are going to figure out our net income. Remember, our formula is total revenue minus total expenses. So again, use a calculator or use your sheets, equals, click your total revenue, and this time we're going to go minus total expenses, and then when I hit enter, I can see it here. So again, make sure this is a positive number. If this were to come out as a negative number, and I'm just going to show you what that would look like, okay, you'll see it has brackets there, that means it's negative. Then you would need to change this to net income, or net loss, sorry. Then you would need to change it to net loss. However, because it's positive, we can leave it the way it is. And the only thing that we need now is a double underline. So if we go up here, okay, if we go back into this border style, the very last one here is a double underline. Again, that just sets the style, and we then need to select here that we need that bottom border. And you'll see that we now have that double underline there. And there you go. You have completed your first income statement.
Thank you so much for watching today's lesson, brought to you by Plug-in to Learning. All the resources used in this video are linked in the description below. If you have any questions, feel free to comment. And to continue learning with us, please subscribe.